There we go. Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, and good people. Welcome to another episode, Vagabond Dog Industry Chats. Today's guest is a long friend of the studio, Jay Tholen. How are you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on this podcast stream thing.
The internet, the magics of the internet. This is a bit of a weird show. This is the first time we've ever done a time shifted schedule everything. But it's working so far. So let's hope we can continue that. Anyway, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Jay, I'd say probably best known for Dropsy and Hypnospace Outlaw. Two incredible games. Dropsy is a point-and-click adventure where you play a somewhat off-putting clown who is full of love and wants to hug everyone. And Hypnospace Outlaw is, gosh, man, this is a... You can't put it in a traditional genre category because I think it sort of established something new. Really, really, really groundbreaking game. But I guess it is best explained as a late 90s, early 2000s internet simulator that takes place inside of a virtual dreamscape full of strange happenings and characters and people and stories and interpersonal relationships. And you play as an enforcer, somebody who I guess moderates and censors content across the hypnospace. Wonderful games. Jay, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How did I do? How did I do? Did I miss anything in hypnospace? Is
It
hard
was
to explain.
heartwarming. It was very nice descriptions of both. It's a hard game to describe. So you did a good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and internet and operating system simulator.
Right, yes, that's true. Right, yeah, because there's also like virtual pets and clippy sort of takeoffs and antivirus programs, and yeah, it is such a hard game to like wrap your brain around at first go. Like the second I saw it, I knew what it was. I knew why I wanted to play it. But I'm so curious to know, like, how did that start in your head?
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, sorry. Like, I mean, did it start with like, hey, there's a story I want to tell, and I think this like faux operating system is the best medium for it, or was it, hey, I want to try experimenting with like all the fun kitschiness of having a fake operating system, or was it, is there something about the nature in which we interact with operating systems and computers and the internet that like was inherently an interesting game mechanic, or what drew you into that concept to start with? So it is a vague question. I apologize.
No, that's cool. So first of all, I grew up, my formative years were, we got a computer in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
After much begging from me. And then my parents were, back then they said they were a little scared to get internet access because of viruses and things like that. Now I think it was probably a money issue. But then finally in 1999, I was able to convince them to get the internet, at least the Juno $10 a month internet, where you have a little banner ad all the time while you're surfing. And, so I remember just feeling like, gee, how old was I? So 97, I would have been 10, and 99, I would have been 12.
Mm-hmm.
And both times when I first got a computer and when we first got the internet, I had all these, I was a fan of the whole thing because of TV and movies and just reading it in magazines and limited access at school sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, it just blew my mind, and my imagination like was running wild with like what this could mean. The whole idea of talking to someone from another country instantly was so cool, and I did buy into all that marketing stuff with like people flying around and 3D landscapes on the information superhighway or whatever. It really plays with your mind when you're a kid, and you know, I guess that they intend this for decision making adults to appeal to them, but to me as a kid, man, that was amazing looking. So when we finally got the internet, it was slightly disappointing, but it was because it wasn't quite what it looked like on TV and stuff. But it was still amazing, and you don't know where the boundaries are when you're a kid and you first get on there. You're like downloading all the stuff, and I think there's a little bit of you hoping that you'll find that 3D paradise. Maybe I'll
Right.
download a program and it's this 3D chat like it is in all the. And I did download a 3D chat, but I had dial up and it didn't really work so well. So, but but I think the promise of the internet, like
Mm-hmm.
from when I was a kid, that obsession I had with it before I had it, and then when I got it, like establishing myself there as if it was like a place or something, and then that whole experience. And I didn't have a good time in school, so I quickly found communities online to be friends with people and stuff. And just that whole stretch of time from anticipating to then being a little disappointed by it, but then eventually almost like making a little home on it was fundamentally what inspired it. But then after Dropsy, her story came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then Alien Melons games, like Tetrageddon games, and Alien Melons other trippy sort of Windows 95 psychedelia stuff that was also coming out, and I liked both her story and that, but her story bugged me because I loved the gameplay where you search and you basically uncover the narrative all on your own, or you feel like you are, and I liked that. And then I liked the idea of having an operating system, but in her story you couldn't fiddle with much of anything. You can't drag icons around, and that disappointed me. I was like, oh man, let me have fun on here and do some stuff. But I know it's not the point. But so then I was like, well, I really want to make one of these and just feature creep it as much as I want, and just put all the things that I want in there, like what's in a real operating system, and then cut out the not fun stuff. And yeah, so that's what inspired it. Wanting to basically make my own fake operating system to toy around with, because I thought that was just uh, I don't know. I can go on forever, but I guess the final thing I'll say is I really like the idea. Like games have to sell you on a reality, kind of. You like
Mm-hmm.
you're buying in. You have
Mm-hmm.
to buy in to at least some reality for it to have any kind of emotional impact, or for you to connect with the characters. And I think an operating system is such a good one for a computer game, because you're interfacing with it like you would an operating system. So if you want to build a fake universe, and it's through the window, no pun
Right.
intended, of a fake operating system and a fake browser, and then you really can buy into that because you're just used to that in interfacing with the real world through those means, through a browser or through files you download. So if you can make a fictional experience like that where everything's just slightly off, or slightly maybe a little magical feeling or something, I thought that could feel really neat. And then like when you're a kid, you don't know where the boundaries are. You're like,
Right.
oh, I wonder what kind of programs are in here, what's possible in this little world or whatever. So
Yeah, the element of discovery is very, very strong in the game, and it's one of those things. And the operating system as a medium is incredibly immersive. Like it does absolutely achieve that effect. Um, the thing that's very fun, and maybe this will continue to change as the genre grows, but like I feel like the story of Hypnospace is also super centered around the technology and the web space and all that. And I can absolutely I reflect your late 90s early 2000s excitement and optimism for the internet. Like I remember being around that time, you know, it's sold to you like this is the future, everybody. Hello, get with the program. We're going to cyberspace together. Um, to the point that it like yeah, it absolutely captivates your attention as a young person. You know, because it's not just like this cool thing that like you and your friends are into. It's literally the whole, at that point in time, the whole world was like waking up to what this could mean for media and culture and everything like that. And it really did feel like the precipice of something that I mean, who knew it would become exactly what the internet is today, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember what that was like for me, and I'm curious. You talked a little bit about finding online communities, and you talked a little bit about your entry into the internet. But I'm curious, what were your internet habits like in those days? What did you do online?
So pre-internet, I was obsessed with having my own website.
Yes, me too.
That was the first thing I wanted like is have my own website. And so I had a few bitmap files in MS Paint of my website, which was I believe called the Dragon's Lair, or the Blue Dragon, or I don't know what it was, something like that. And it was just a long MS Paint bitmap with, I used the box tool and drew my own nav bar on the side, and drew and wrote the text in some text, and in the different pages I saved as different bitmap files. And I thought, oh, once I get the internet, I can just put these bad boys up there, and then they'll become a website. You can click everything. But of course, it's not how it happens.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out at the time either, like how to make that happen. Of course, nowadays I would just slice it, and that's actually a thing you can do. But uh, so I gave up on that little dream when we first got the internet. I did try very hard to upload it to. I got GeoCities, and then I got Homestead, which was another GeoCities-esque page builder thing. So first top priority right when I got the internet was make my own website, and I did that through Homestead. And Homestead, GeoCities confined you to like tables, and you had to like, it was almost like the page builder was almost like a document format, like, HTML's like things push other things to the side. But what was it? Homestead's page builder had absolute positioning and ordering of elements. So you could, drag things wherever you wanted and put them on top or under each other, and they wouldn't. I didn't know this at the time, but they wouldn't render consistently on all browsers, but whatever. So I did the thing that I wanted to do, and I MS painted my web graphics in chunks and then uploaded them there, and then put text over the top of them. And they were all JPEGs, I remember, and very blurry. They were pixel art, but then they got blurry because I made them JPEG. And but initially, that was my whole thing. In the first forum I signed up for was The Sims, the forum for The Sims.
Interesting.
And I was frustrated because my chosen alias was Sim 052 SIM droid, and the Sims forum would not let me use the word droid because of Star Wars. It stopped, and that was back in '99 or 2000 even. and it says, sorry, this is a property owned by whoever, Star Wars thing, and you can't use it in your username.
And,
Real funky.
and this is where the root of Hypnospace as a moderation and censorship platform for
Maybe.
begins.
Maybe. But then at the time I also had Click and Play,
Right.
the game making software from the 90s, and the Games Factory, which is Click and Play's successor. And so I signed up on the Click Team forum and other community websites for that game making software. And that was my first real community I was really a part of, was the Click and Play community. You call it a proto indie game community, I guess. And there were often wars. I don't know if you can call them wars, but we did not like the game maker community.
Right.
Game maker people.
There is something like I guess I'll compliment. We'll say wonderfully juvenile about internet culture in that way.
Yeah.
That it just like divides up into camps and like it makes conflict where there doesn't really need to be one.
Mm-hmm.
I notice in Hypnospace, as much as it is about the technology and exploring it and everything, I think the real heart of the story and of the game, where I truly started to fall in love with it, was in the social interactions of the users. It feels very authentic to a time I very faintly remember. So I don't know how accurate it is, but it does not feel like modern social media at all. Where I think a lot of like the personality of the individual comes across in their page design and how it adapts and changes, and the different types of things they put on there versus, it's just this endless stream of almost identical looking tweets in modern times. I guess, did you intend for some sort of social reflection in there, or like where did the story of the people interacting sort of begin? And what part of your internet journey were you referencing in there?
So yeah, it was a combination of having to tell a story through the game, so and reflecting on how people really did communicate. So the fake thing is people didn't update their pages and change them near as much as they do in Hypnospace.
Right.
And like if you go look at the GeoCities archive or Angel Fire websites or any of these old websites, personal homepage websites, people would make a page. There'd maybe be 2 or 3 updates, little updates. It's like, and most of the updates are like, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm planning on getting around to adding things to this website soon," and then that's the end of it. And they never add anything to the
infinite
like,
under construction gifts.
Yeah, it's charming, but like I would say at least 40% of GeoCities pages are that. Like someone had an idea, maybe they didn't realize how much work it would be or just never found time, and it's just like, "Hey everyone, still alive. I'm planning on big things soon." And then the archive of the page is just that, and it's like, so yeah, so we took some creative license in that it's in Hypnospace people are a little more active with updating their pages. We also had statuses above the pages,
Right.
so that you could you could just get an idea of the state the person is in right when you see the page without having to look at what changes they've made, maybe because people are impatient. And we can't expect people to scrub through every page and notice every change. But so that's inaccurate. But but you're right. The way people I guess, expressed themselves and shared without any expectation of or any way of even knowing if anyone cared about what they're sharing. That was different. Sometimes there would be guest books and then people would comment in those, but by and large, you just really didn't know who was on your site. Maybe someone would send you a nice email or a bad email reacting to your site, but you didn't know really. And so people, it was pretty cool because people were just, if you look at the GeoCities archive, which I believe the one that I used is OOCities, like not zero, but oocities.org, I think. And that was a GeoCities archive. But people were posting recipes of their own, presumably, poems. Um, Very little, there was no real sharing functionality like now. Embedding stuff happened, I guess, in the form of downloading an image or an animated GIF and then re-uploading it to your site, or hot linking. Don't do that. Don't hot link a thing and image and use someone else's bandwidth. That was a big no. But by and large, it was, even if people did just put Dragon Ball Z GIFs or pictures of Pikachu, the the context of it was always different and maybe interesting. And people would have their little journal page, like pre-blog journals and stuff like that. So it was a weird, more vulnerable, less homogenous time for the internet. Like some of these pages would be contextualized as like a TV, and here's the different channels. That was the early metaphors, channels, instead of what we have now, which is everyone pretty much knows it's pages, I guess, like a book or something. And so there's all kinds of different ways people, like any new technology, people that had just had a blank page and they had to put, whatever they felt like on there, sharing with the world. And it is a lot different when you look at the things people do share, because now there is a sense of what everyone's talking about, and you feel compelled to comment on it now, like on social media. You feel like, okay, yeah, everyone's talking about this big thing, and if you react, everyone's gonna see it, or a lot of people will see it, and you can be a part of this bigger conversation everyone's having. But there was less a sense of that, I would say. More just throwing stuff out, putting it somewhere, and hoping someone stumbles upon it.
Yeah, I feel like the internet has changed substantially from that time, in particular in the way that I think we've become a lot more consumptive with our interaction with the internet rather than creative with it. A lot of time spent or wasted, you can, depending on your perspective, building those, my first web pages. I know I spent countless hours, doing that, without contributing anything of substantive value other than, here is my little flag on the moon. This is, I'm here. This is my collection of, like, things that I think are cool. And now, we have, your Twitter profile, and it's, everybody's got the same. You've got your one pin tweet, and you've got your, like, it's like MySpace brought it a step down from, everybody just make your own thing from scratch, to, okay, we've got a sort of template now. What can you fit in the template, to, okay, let's remove a lot of the categories in the template, with your Facebook profile, and it's a very more streamlined, and now it's almost no room for that personality.
Yeah.
Like we're more free to dump content in, but somehow I feel like that the soul of it is slowly been slipping away. And
Yeah, me too. I guess, maybe it has to do with things that can easily become a commodity and things that can't, like changing the background of your page or your MySpace or your Twitter or your Facebook. Like you could do that back, I think on of course you could do that on MySpace, but I
mhm.
thought early YouTube you could even change the background of your channel to like whatever you wanted, the tiled image. And that's a roadblock because then maybe someone's page is too garish or hurts your eyes or who knows. So you can't do that anymore. And I guess with people are still uploading and sharing content, but I guess the sad thing, and to me sad thing, is that everything is a commodity. Like every video uploaded has the potential to make the platform money.
Mhm.
Like and um and if you just you made your whole GeoCities web page or your private homepage, like maybe they'd have a banner ad somewhere, but it wasn't, I'm sure if they had thought of that back then they would have tried it, but they weren't. All right, this is too hot, but I gotta show everyone. And I did have my shirt. Oh, it's all wrinkly. Oh no,
That's good.
my
And
Vagabond Dog shirt.
I've got my Hypnospace on. There you go. Throw it
Uh,
away.
yeah, so that's
I'm not taking this one off.
I should
Not
have
that
ripped
kind
it
of
off.
not that kind of show.
But yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's certainly more useful now. Like I guess you can find the things you want to find more quickly. I don't know. You can find the things you want to find quickly. It's efficient for finding things. For
Right.
sharing things, it's unless you have money now or now it's, I guess, getting more and more difficult. Also, the things you share, it feels like there's a higher bar now. Like it feels like you it doesn't feel like you're allowed to share anything unless it's good or impressive in some way, or like not really. um uh because there's always like some kind of number involved now, like
It
likes or whatever. But on your GeoCities page you just put whatever, and there wasn't much readily available to compare it to, you know. So
the yeah the I mean that comes with the glut of content. And Chet says it's like you can find what you want, but what you find is lower quality. Um, I mean, you maybe there's a sense of being drowned out, and like I think it's a social change, it's a cultural change more than a technological change that's happened to drive that. But it there when you touched on the monetization of content, it really also reminded me of another part of the Hypnospace story that I really enjoyed, which is the story of the characters within Merchant Soft, and the like authenticity of that tech leader narrative that like I'm I'm curious why like we follow so many of these types of stories in the news and media and in our culture, and we hold them up and we scrutinize them intensely. Where did the story for the internals of the company come from, and why do you think they hold so much attention in our media and culture in general, and I guess us as individuals? Like,
I guess
what's
because
our
they're
fascination?
rich. But yeah,
Rich stories or rich people?
the people are rich. Not in I mean, in Hypnospace some of them are, but you know what I mean. Like that's why they hold our collective attention, I guess, because they're the powerful rich people. But
Hmm.
um, in Hypnospace, some of those characters were based on my first job. that I had that was not like telemarketing and stuff, which was the only job that I had that wasn't telemarketing and like manual labor. Um, I don't want to say what I don't want to say what the company was
It's fine.
called, but they had a page builder, and we are the thing that differentiated our company was that we had a 1-800 helpline. So if you were using this page builder, and this was in 2012, so mobile was huge, and this was not a dynamic, mobile friendly, whatever thing. It was a drag and drop page builder, and we had a lot of packages we offered people that were like the SEO package and other things, which basically just meant submitting their website to Google and making sure they had keywords. And it was like too expensive for that. And, a lot of people you would kind of help. Well, I would kind of help without selling them anything, which is probably why I didn't last very long at that job. Because it felt bad, because these are people with small businesses or people who were just doomed, like they were trying to start online clothes shopping things, and they bought our e-commerce, which was like a really bare bones thing with like traditional radio buttons, and like old HTML looking
HTML form, literally.
Yeah, it was, and yeah. So that was one of those jobs where the page builder itself is pretty cool. Like, it was drag and drop, kind of cool. You could paste in HTML and it would put it in your page too. But our clients were older people or people who weren't very good at computers, so there was a lot of like having to use the log me in 123 remote help thing, and then I would show people how to open their browser. Yeah, but it was something. But it was a very strange company because it was relatively small. I can't give away so much about it, but without I don't want to get into trouble. But basically, the person who ran the company had made it big around the Napster era for making a program, I guess, like Napster, but they charged for it. And the person had reformed, though, and wanted to like actually make something that helped people, which is what this product was. And I could see that was the intent. But two of the people at this company, though, were inspirations for some of the people in Hypnospace. So it was, I would say, 50% that experience. I hate not telling you the whole story.
No, that's fair. It's fair. I don't want to put you in hot water.
Yeah. But there's so much from the game that is just taken right from my working there. But also it's based on the real .com era, like garage startup whiz kids. Like, oh, these guys were 19 when they started this web company in their garage, and then they don't tell you it was with dad's $100,000 or whatever. But and like, but there were also people who weren't super rich, who just were savvy and were able to like get in there. I guess when any technology is new, there's an opportunity for a few people to wiggle their way in. But there was one story about pseudo.com. Do you know about this?
No.
I think the guy's name is Josh Harris, who ran that. And it was a sort of edgy video content platform in 1998 or 99 is when they were starting, and they streamed live videos about music and youth culture and stuff like that on their website, based on the hope that everyone had that broadband was going to take off, and
Hmm.
by 2000 25% of every house would have broadband and stuff, which did not happen. um, and they of course went under, but they had extravagant, just nutty parties, and they were in Silicon Alley, in the New York version of Silicon Valley, and they just had crazy parties. They were super disorganized. This guy was very ambitious, but he had very little self control, I suppose.
Hmm.
He was also quite manipulative. There's a podcast, the Internet History Podcast, and there's an interview about this, pseudo.com, and it's just fascinating, like the excess. And I guess investors were just all wanting to be the big thing, and they were just throwing money at people without knowing what's up, because how could they? It's brand new stuff. And this guy was just very clever at getting people to pour money on him. And he also used that money for an experiment, where he kept everyone in a weird complex that he made in these little cells, and they were all live streamed, or they could all see each other on video panels and had webcams in each cell. And there were even, like, I guess, underage people. There's a documentary about it.
Let's actively try and make a dystopia.
Yeah, it was a very strange. Not Josh. That's a Christian guy. Josh Harris, maybe. We Live in Public is what it's called, and it's about that strange experiment that he did. But that whole weird thing where investors were just chucking money at unproven, like, young, I guess you could say, proto tech bro dudes.
Hmm.
Um, and what they were doing with the money. And some of these guys were just, on the other side of it, just nerdy dudes with no business acumen. And then, but they wanted to retain control, and then they went under for that reason. They weren't maybe uh, ambitious enough in a business sense, you know. Uh, so just the crazy whirlwind of that time, where just money was flying around, and what ended up happening with all of it inspired me a lot, and especially because of the impact that it had on the way the internet developed, and the impact it had on users, you know, which people don't talk about much, you know, but you know, it has, you know, all these guys changing things and messing with, like, these early social platforms, and you know, people start building lives on these platforms online, and then, you know, I guess it's easy to just not think about what their experience is, what you're doing to them, like, you know, by all of these decisions. But yeah, I guess so. I guess that was some of it too. Is like, a lot of the higher up stuff was inspired by that dude. But also just like what happens when you make seemingly minor changes, like, for example, putting a bunch of people's pages on a very slow server, because uh,
Right.
uh, which is a real thing that happened on a few different websites, and then the people definitely noticed. But yeah.
Um, I mean that those examples are savage. Uh, but I I'm curious for your take. Why do you think so many young, smart people who find success ultimately end up with some form of corruption from it? Like, um, it's a story that we've seen repeated, especially primarily in the tech media, where uh, young, smart people have some big hit, and then things go horribly wrong eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you mean like on a personal level. Why do they do bad stuff?
What is it about humans that in that state, like what
I
is
don't
it
know.
about our natural, instincts as individuals that leads us down this road of abusing our power and position, or no longer remembering like what it's like to not have that much power. um
Yeah, I wonder if. Well, I do think having a lot of money is very bad for a person. um, I think it's very bad for a person. Like, I mean, an excessive amount of money. Think I don't know, just from anecdotally, just from the people that I know who
mhm.
have run into a lot of money, or the examples like this dude, people that I've read about, like universally, pretty much, when you get a lot of money, you become less good. And yeah, man, I don't really know why. Um, I and I do think that these people, maybe they rationalize that, oh, now I'm the one with the money, I'm gonna be helping people though, or I'm a good guy.
Right, yeah, I agree. Nobody sets out to, like, I mean, there are a couple people who are like, I love twirling my mustache, I'm gonna be the best
Yeah,
villain I can
yeah,
be. But that's like, they're very
yeah,
few and far between, and the effect they have is often so much less significant than the people who believe that they're doing good. um,
yeah.
uh, what is it, I guess, then, about good intentions taken to an extreme that goes wrong?
Yeah, I don't know. Um, Maybe it's in terms of like running a company, or something like that. Maybe it's because they're trying to keep this company competitive, or keep it afloat, and then uh I think just to do that for any length of time probably requires some you to be bad. If you're running a company, like,
Just out of
just,
competition?
I guess, just because of, well, the way I sense that the system works, like like it, to be, I'm talking like very big, operation, or maybe not even very big, but like for example, I worked at a factory. It was a relatively small company, and the CEO, in the same building, we could walk to his office, but we were making just over minimum wage, and people who had been there for many, many years, like maybe 15 years, uh, were making still just over minimum wage. And we had bare bones healthcare, but everyone felt a lot like a family, because we did hang out with the CEO, and we did know the CEO is not necessarily a rich guy. I mean, he's relatively rich compared to all of us, but we know he's not one of those CEOs. But I didn't know much what the heck the things we were making did. It was a soldering job, but I did know that they were a little outdated, and I think that the companies that needed them were just for legacy. They ordered these things for because it was they needed legacy parts, like old deprecated stuff. Um, and I sensed that this company was not. There was no future really for it, but there was this sort of, you know feeling there that everyone had specialized knowledge, even me, pretty much. For only working there 4 years, I had pretty specialized knowledge of how to efficiently make these certain units, and And if any one person left, the machine would kind of, I think, you know, not function so well and maybe put everyone at risk of losing the company. And I have to imagine if you're one of the people who does make a good living at the company, which is probably the top 4 or 5 people there, um, and it's not a massive crazy living, but it was comfortable. I would imagine going by their cars and stuff like that. Like I think just the company existing, continuing to exist, and them dragging it along is bad for everyone there. I think now looking back at it, um, but because I think a lot of these people were barely getting by, and the healthcare wasn't covering things that it should have covered, and a lot of people there just lived in trailers, like trying to get by, and
even though these people at the top are thinking, hey, we're providing jobs, period. Like,
yeah, for sure. And maybe they thought, maybe they were even convinced that, maybe they even felt a real conviction, like they needed to keep it going for the sake of all the people here. But I don't think so. I think they should. I think they're still going, and I really wish they would just pack it up. But for the sake of everyone, maybe it would be hard to find another job. I don't know. It's pretty complicated, That's pretty complicated. But I do think that the decisions they're making to like keep pulling this like corpse along are bad choices, probably for the people working there. Like, but I don't know how much I can blame them or the system that we have, But that was probably an influence on like some of the game stuff too. I got off track there, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of the. I mean, until a replacement comes along, it is really hard to like, to say that nothing would be better than what we have. It's it's, even though so often nothingness opens up opportunity, right? Where there is nothing, people will start to invent and innovate and create. That blankness is not as poisonous as I think people think a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I bet there's game companies that are just like that too, though. And so I guess I would find it hard to blame anyone in some of those situations, but maybe just the crappy system. But I do think that on a larger scale, like on a larger scale, it gets to where it's just downright like it has to be, like Amazon, like
right.
I think there's some definite like you're not doing the best thing for the people who work for you type of thing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, to pursue that, I think to pursue that level, you have to have like you've been accepted that fact like long ago. You're not even going to get into that room until you've accepted that.
What happens to you though? Like what happens to a person? Maybe they were just always like that. Maybe they never grew up and had any fundamental belief about a human being valuable. Maybe they just never had that, and so maybe that's how they got to where they are, because then that allows you, without thinking other people are valuable and they need to be cared for or something, you can just kind of be as cutthroat or whatever as you want.
Yeah.
And I guess that's rewarded. So,
yeah. I mean, it is something that because there are so many of us, right? It is really easy to I think to lose that sense of value in a person, right? There's what 7-8 billion of us. Okay, well, how much can one human possibly be worth, right? And more importantly, I'm the protagonist of the experience here, right? This is my story, and I've crawled up from where you were, you know, no, ignore whatever hands have helped pull me up, but you know,
Yeah.
I was in your position once. It's very very the path is there, and it's like I wish I hope I know um what I need to keep in mind to keep myself grounded, because like as we go, because I mean, you know, through our lives eventually we will find more and more success. You know, the longer you try, eventually something is going to work, or at least that's the hope.
Yeah.
And I always hope I have the mental clarity and you know the value system or whatever to retain the beliefs in respecting, you know, the people you work with and other people in general. But um where do you think like where should people start building these values, and like why do you think it's not like automatic in everybody all the time?
Yeah, I don't know, man.
This
That's
is
a
very
good.
far from game specific
Yeah.
conversation now.
Yeah. I wonder if. Oh no, we went down from 8 to 7. Anyway, but
Oh, it
yeah.
says 9 on mine.
Oh, good. Well, don't look in a few seconds,
Okay.
maybe. Um. Yeah, man, that's a big question. Lot. For me, I mean, I grew up as a Christian, and I think that people were made in the image of God, and I think that gives everyone fundamental value. I think everyone has something, not like something in them that no one else has. No one else, uh, in history has and but of course, that's not gonna be advice that everyone can act on there, but so that just that fundamental idea of just like, this person created in the image of God. You better not, hurt this person,
Right.
because you're doing it to God, basically. Like it is, and it's not as much of a negative thing either. It's just seeing that also that there's this inherent beauty that just can't be taken away, and if I'm not seeing it in the person, then that's my problem. Like, then I have to look harder, or you know um there's something in there that's good. Maybe they've piled a lot of crap on top of it, so it's really hard to see.
Right.
uh, but there's something in there, and that's good. That I think, you know if things, in a that I guess God would like them to know about themselves, and to record, like, their, I guess you could say, the true self, or something like this. But uh not so actionable, I suppose. But yeah, that's, for me, that's what it is.
That's where it
But
comes from. Yeah. That's good.
yeah, but that even people with that fundamental belief
Right.
get start sucking. And I just wonder if it's because you're having to work within the system, and you're having to justify, like, for example, we still can't, like, our games are still low budget enough, where we can't afford to give people health care. Everyone has to fend for themselves with that. Of course, ideally we pay enough so that people can afford the health care if they're a full-time, like, helping us out full-time, not like a contract thing. But that's a thing. Even like, if we do get to the point where we could afford that, I feel like I better do that. Like,
Right.
that would feel wrong to me not to do that, if that was a thing that we could afford. But I almost sometimes wonder, should I, if I can't, if my game budget isn't enough to offer that to the people who are working full time on the game, should this even should I just do this all by myself and learn how, like,
Yeah, that's tough.
and I imagine on up, those things don't get easier. Like, like, so, and with the original Hypnospace, we were gonna have, this didn't end up happening much, but we were gonna have Fiverr um content, some Fiverr content, like, and I stopped it and didn't use any of it for two reasons. One, it felt very mean because some of it was, I originally was looking for the artists on there who weren't very good, and my original thinking was, these are people from super disadvantaged countries, bad economies usually, and I wasn't paying them five. I was going to pay them more, but you're still putting, their art in there, knowing people are going to kind of laugh at how bad it is.
Right.
And God, like, what if they saw this? Like, maybe they wouldn't care. Maybe it was low effort on purpose because they're just trying to get money. It's a hustle, which I don't blame them for. Whatever, but and that was a thing that we could have done that I think would have been pretty bad. Just
right, especially had they not known what their art was specifically being used for in the context it was being used for. Yeah, I can see the moral dilemma.
Yeah, and then on the other side, I reached out to some indie people on Twitter who did 3D for games and stuff, and I can't pay $800 a day for some really bad 3D models. So I just ended up learning 3D and then making the bad 3D models myself because I sucked anyway, because I was just learning. So that worked out.
That's a good path.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, it's tough when you just started talking about, is the project worth doing if we can't, provide everything for everyone. I know with my own company, I've been very glad to not have any full-time employees or anything, because like this thing is just, Vagabond Dog has been just dragged by my own stubbornness, almost from the outset, right? Like I feel like I'm finally getting to that place where I'm like ready to start bringing in people and like, let's take this seriously as like as this is not just, one crazy person trying to make, their passion happen anymore. This is like a thing I'd like to, I'd like some benefit to come to other people. It would be nice, but it is a tough proposition to, because we're not in games to make money and to make jobs so much. We're in games to fulfill passion, right? Like,
yeah, for me, it's the thing we're crafting. Like, I still can't think of it like a business, and I suck at the business stuff still, and I really would rather ignore it. But as the games get a little more ambitious, you can't really ignore it. It kind of sucks.
yeah, it's that, but that is the way. You have to hang up that, indie forever true for hat if you really want to stay in this for your whole life. I think some change is needed. I'm starting to feel ready for that change.
Yeah.
But I've also been at this for almost 10 years now.
Right. Yeah. Like, right. I know what you mean about dragging along though, because Dropsy was semi well known in like bubbles on Twitter and elsewhere, but it didn't do well enough, to really keep this thing going at like in terms of survival or something. So I get, if Hypnospace did much better, and I don't know if that would have not succeeded. I think I might have tried to just start a freelance thing or join a company, but I know what it's like though. Like, one thing that makes me sad is I see I guess the talk online about like of people often they have some itch games they've uploaded or maybe Steam games for free or for cheap and they're not getting much attention or something and then they feel maybe angry or something about when people maybe at my level or your level have a publisher
Mm.
or or have a decent community playing their games and I know what they actually really want is just people to play their dang game and see their thing they made and enjoy it. Like a good amount of people to find it and play it, and so they feel maybe bad because they see that like if I have a publisher, you know, or someone has a publisher, like that feels very businessy. That feels very, you know, that seems against the spirit of it. But really, that's why I have a publisher is because I just want people to see my thing, like
Right.
have a chance at finding it out there, and they might see our projects as relatively huge. Like
Yep.
you look at the amount of Steam reviews or whatever, but you know, in like in the business world, we're so small, like we're almost invisible still, in this uh, world. So it's difficult to like navigate that and like give people good, helpful advice because it's like publishers. I think publishers are a great way to go. It's helped me, or finding PR and marketing and maybe doing a rev share agreement or something with them to get your game out there. But like I think people pretty much need, unless they've already had some success in the past, need something like that. Like to just get people to see your game, I guess. And it feels crappy because I feel like the big fish guy sometimes,
Right.
just
You feel like the big fish when you're looking that way, and you feel like the small fish when you're looking
yeah,
that way, and
yeah,
that never changes for me.
yeah,
Like, no matter how much success I have, there's an infinite number of people more successful than me and more well known and whatever, and there's an infinite number of people who are less well known and the games are less successful, and it doesn't matter how far up or down that scale I slide. It's infinite in both directions, and
yeah, right,
I'm just stuck in the middle no matter what, and that's life, and
yeah, right,
I'm there.
yeah,
Coping with that and being comfortable with that is something that is gotten easier with time. I've after the first game, it brings a wild swing of emotions, right? um Especially 'cause, I mean, actually, we're similar in that we had a very well known publisher take our first games, right? Like, correct me if
yeah.
I'm wrong, but Dropsy is. Did you have anything before Dropsy? I don't know of
No,
anything before
no, I
Dropsy. Right,
had nothing. I ran that Kickstarter,
right.
uh, and before it was successful, I didn't even have a real prototype. I just had some faked graphics moving around.
Hmm.
They emailed me and they're like, "We were looking for an adventure game. Just right, good timing, I guess." Um, yeah. So that was, I guess you could say, my big break. Even though the game didn't really sell that well, it still got me to where I started becoming acquainted with some people, and I shipped the game, which counts for something.
Now here's the check and balance. At the time, when it shipped. Oh no, you froze. Is it still there?
Uh-oh. Yeah, we froze a second. I
Oh,
got
there
you
you go.
now.
You're back. You're back. Okay. At the time when it shipped and you started seeing the Steam numbers come in, did you think it wasn't that good, or is this some perspective that you've developed in hindsight in relation to Hypnospace and other things since?
Well, it took us 4 months for me to start making any money, so I knew it wasn't going very well. Yeah. So and
Oh no, we froze
they
again.
they they pretty much let me know in nice, gentle terms that wasn't a smash or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
relative to
Oh no, the freeziness.
uh I think there's still a lot of love for the character there, and Devolver's a great publisher, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a tough genre, and yeah.
Yeah, it is quite the roller coaster to be on for your first title, and a lot of good comes with it, but I think there's definitely some emotional turmoil that also rides with that level of spotlight. And I mean, is there anything that, like, I guess for anybody in the audience who is about to finish their first game and might end up with a world-class publisher, is there anything you wish you had known going into Dropsy that might have kept you a little bit more comfortable mentally? There's tons for me.
Yeah, I think a lot. One thing is, I wish I wasn't so hung up on tools and like how to make the game. If I had just like this is a thing I want to do too, maybe in the future, but if I had just this is depending on your genre, this will be ill-advised. But if I had just made all of the graphics, which I could have done, and the music, which I could have done, and just made it all, made sure maybe opened up a project file in Adventure Game Studio and looked at how they cut things and stuff, so that the technical part of the graphics works out, like the door sizes aren't all wonky or whatever. But like, just done all the graphics and the music, and then uh you know I would have saved myself a lot of trouble. I just was so hung up on like, and it's maybe unconventional because there's a lot of technical requirements, but for a point and click adventure you can pretty much get away with that. um and that stops me all the time though. I always want to wait until I can see it moving around in a program. But you can pretty much, like, if you have, for me, I'm a musician and an artist, and I have a lot of concepts in here that I think could be good. If you can get some pretty graphics and pretty sounds and fake a thing in a program looking like something, and you take that looks very pretty and attractive, which is what I think I'm pretty good at, is like the aesthetic stuff, like the visuals and sound together thing. I really like that, like mixing those and making them vibe. But like, and you take that to a publisher and it has a good hook and it's cool or something. Like, I think that you would have, you know, a pretty good chance of like them saying, okay, we'll throw, depending on who it is, we'll get you a programmer and like make this a thing if you show them all of your, and I guess the thing I wish I knew though was that publishers will drop like a good amount of money. Like, when I was first trying to contact publishers, no one replied to me, but I was like, I just need $5,000 for the year.
Right. That's when they
And
ignore you. They know to ignore you completely.
they know to ignore you. Yeah, because I was like, I just need five. I can by on that. I'll live with my dad and I'll eat cheap food. And a lot of people think, oh, this will look so great to a publisher because they won't have to spend any money.
Yeah, it's such a good value. They can get this dirt for free.
Yeah. And one, they're gonna think you're gonna deliver a crappy product for that, and then two, which you might, but even if you would make a great product, they're gonna assume like it's not as much the people you're directly talking to, but it's like the money guys who those guys answer to, who would say $5,000. That's
right.
ridiculous. No one will ever make a good game on $5,000. Like, if you have like a legit cool thing, a concept, or really pretty art and music and stuff, like, because I'm not coming from the coder angle. Like, I can't do that. But and I have no interest in really learning much of it, but they will like fund a coder beginning to end to code your game, and they'll spend whatever 100, 200,000 bucks, maybe. I don't know. It depends on the scope of your game. Maybe not 200, but 100,000 bucks or something that sounds astronomically
There's
huge.
the salary. They'll pay the salary for sure.
Yeah, they'll pay the coder's salary and they'll market your game. Like, and I know so many people who still, maybe they're thinking of a Kickstarter or they're launching, they're asking for funding, who are like, oh, I've made this game all by myself and it's almost done. And then there's just things that like the publisher, you know, and they're like, I only need $1,000 to finish it up, and you don't need to really pay me nothing. That's not attractive. Like they want to be, that's not attractive. They want to be probably part of it earlier, and they'll pay stuff if they think it's great. Like, so don't be scared of like. I wish I knew like not to be scared of like thinking of it as a legitimate like game that someone would possibly want to drop money, like help getting you programming help or maybe getting you art help or something.
It's one of those things where I think poor people are very bad at talking about money to rich people.
Yeah.
Right? It's when you don't have money, because I was in the exact same situation. We did ASM on like half of one person's a realistic salary. Like it was nothing. It was like but to me at the time, basically having nothing, right?
It was amazing.
It seemed like an incredible amount of funding.
Yeah.
But it
that's very relatable. I was like, no way. My job before that was making me $250 a week. And so these rich guys, this is like they would like spend that on something stupid. Like they would spend that on like, I don't know, a hotel stay or something. Like your whole budget for your game, they would spend on something so dumb. So like they are not worried about losing what to you sounds like a lot of money. Like coming from being pretty poor, like, or not having much money or whatever, like it's such a weird thing to approach. It's and especially when you see people on Twitter talking, it sounds so foreign and so weird and like so like it's not possible for you, because like, oh my gosh, like you got $100,000 for that project. That's that just seems like so outside of the realm of possibility. Like I didn't make that much in 5 years, or in 7 years, like it just seems not possible. But if your project is cool, and that's another thing, like this is a suck you part too. Like sometimes you just gotta acknowledge that like some part of your project kind of sucky, or like because sometimes people come up to you with a game or something like that, and like it's real hard to say your main character looks stupid or something like that, like, but if it's very glaringly to you it looks dumb, will you be helping them by saying that? Because but to them maybe they love the main character, they've seen it in their project so long. I don't know, the 3D model, like it looks kind of janky, but maybe they're married to it. And then what's the right thing to do there? Because I'm not an authority on main characters, I guess. Like this is just my opinion, but I don't want to come off as a butthole and say this main thing in your game sucks. But sometimes the issue probably also is a quality thing, like maybe a publisher will see that and then say that was your shot with them. but maybe otherwise they would have loved it. But your main character looks stupid, so they don't want to do it. Like, but when you're trying to give advice to peers or to other people who want to break into the industry, how can you do that without being a butthole? I don't think there's a good solution to
I
that one.
I hope that people respect my resilience enough to be honest, right?
Yeah.
And I try to hold others to that same standard. Like, look, if you're gonna crumble, at some earnest criticism, you're gonna have a really hard time when it comes to the Steam forums and
Yeah.
reviews, and I think it's a favor to do that to people now. But circling back to the hard time asking for what your project really needs, it comes back to that thing you said about like witnessing the inherent value in other people, and like, man, if we can turn that in onto ourselves and recognize that inherent value within ourselves and not underplay what we're bringing to the table, we are valuable, we are worth,
Yeah.
right?
You're gonna be working for these to make a product to make these people money, like like yeah. And at the same time, if your thing, like, again, I always say, if your thing looks cool to them, because that's the important part, like, they won't mind. Like, this is what they do. It'll sound worse to them if you don't ask for the right amount, because they'll take you as, and that's always weird too. Like, what is the right amount? Because I had no idea
Mm-hmm.
working at crappy jobs, like what the right amount is. So that's even hard to even say. But I would say it's more than, if you're like, let's say you're making a game for a year, like like what do you think a comfortable salary of like an office worker is? Maybe you could think, like, what do you think they, because when I was growing up, an office worker was also out of the realm of possibility. I would never get an office job, but what would they make and be able to
Yeah.
live on? And then maybe if you can imagine what that would be for you, maybe if you've only worked crappy poor jobs, and you imagine that next step up where these people, can afford to go out to restaurants or whatever, like, tell the publisher that's how much you need. Like, I don't, if you have trouble coming up with a number, like, it's such a weird thing though, because again, like, maybe someone will do all this, take all this advice and stuff that we're saying, and then it won't work out. Like,
Sorry. My bad.
it's
Uh,
all, yeah. Yeah, and it's not, maybe we're giving bad advice, but maybe it's not the advice. Could be their main character looks stupid. Main character is bad. I don't know, man. There's so many variables. It's weird.
yeah. It is really tough. Um, but I mean, all good advice for anybody who's priming up their first shot in the dark. Um, we are coming long on time, but I did want to veer into can you explain what Odd Church is and give us a little bit of
Odd.
an introduction?
Oh yeah, you joined that server
Yeah.
at the
Okay.
beginning, maybe. Um, Odd Church was originally gonna be a music act thing, online music act, because I figured out how to take MIDI signals from my DAW, from my digital audio workstation. Is that what that is?
But-
Uh, MIDI signals, and then use it to trigger animations in a 2D game engine. So I set up a pixel art drummer who responds to the drum MIDI coming from my music, and a weird pan pipe players. I don't know. It's weird, but and I thought, and I was also thinking, so music is my thing I like doing the most. It doesn't stress me out. It's always fun to me. It's much more fun creatively and fulfilling to me than games are. Like, maybe because it just doesn't stress me out is why, but um, I could just get in the zone and work on music all day long. So I've always wanted to do that and have, like in games, have some people hear my music. And um, also, I think that there's, the whole Christianity thing. I feel that there's some need, some thing in there where I need to sing to God and tell God what God means to me. and so and maybe not only sing, but just through how you treat people too, and just everything. But singing is a way to do it. And so I started, and I hate Christian music. So I was like, maybe there's other people who hate Christian music or want some interesting. To me, there's cool sounding Christian music that's kind of hip, and there's also uncool Christian music that everyone listens to in church. Boomers like it, but there's no interesting Christian music by Christians, I guess. And so to me, there's some interesting, but very little. And so I wanted to make weird, interesting Christian music for like the 20 people online who would like that, who are hungry for that kind of thing. And then also the animation element of it is because it was, I guess it's a cynical thought, and this ties back to our early conversation, but putting music online and linking to your music, just the music,
Right.
no one will listen to it. It's very difficult to get anyone to listen to it. So I thought, well, if I put a cool video part that's ornate and kind of fun to watch, then more people would give it a shot and listen to it. And I don't know how true that's been, somewhat true, but it's a very small audience, so I know that people who can handle heavily religious lyrics and like prog rock, jazz, fusion stuff with MIDI sounding instruments, such a small Venn sliver,
Right.
Venn diagram. But so that was the first thing, and I started making some songs and posting them online. And then I was like, you know what, like, I would really like to. A few people commented, and they're like, "What is this? I've been looking for something like this." And then I was like, "Well, I would like to meet these people and like maybe talk to some other people who like this kind of crap, and like who fit in that little Venn diagram sliver." And I feel like it's also quite lonely, and as an extension of that, it can be pretty lonely where I can open up to like other game developers about this world, and I can talk to people at church about that world, but like they're always separate, and it would be so cool to talk shop with other people who hold some similar fundamental beliefs about the universe and God and stuff. So I thought that would be a neat thing for other like Christians. I guess at that, what I mean by that is like Jesus is at the center of it, because I would consider my definition of a Christian or whatever is probably a little more broad than what a lot of people who are Christians would say. Right. But Christians, I guess, who also are maybe pretty online and do some kind of creative thing online. I won't say creatives, because I hate that word, but everyone's a creative. What is that even? You don't come out of the womb and then the doctor's like, oh yeah, here's a creative. That's one stuff I can tell. But whatever. I guess that means I do something creative and also I'm trying to make money at it, is what that means. um, but yeah, but so that small Venn diagram sliver
Hmm.
of people who are Christians and are pretty online, and we can just talk to each other about creative stuff and about spirituality, and yeah, so that's why it's a Discord server. And I've been making these videos now more collaboratively, where people will post audio samples in the Discord, and then I'll cut them into and sometimes with video too. So I'll cut their video of them playing an instrument into the next song. Yeah, and so it's a fun, weird internet church thing, I guess. I don't want to call it a church. Internet community of people with some stuff in common.
Yeah, it's a very unique and charming place. There's it feels game related.
Yeah,
Uh,
a lot
be,
of game adjacent people there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that overlap you talk about of I get, well, I'll call them, the creative faithful,
Yeah,
if we're gonna double stamp now,
yeah, yeah.
um, is a very very interesting sliver, and I think I have always been hyper fascinated by um, that philosophical theological conversation as a game creator. Um,
Yeah, you can tell in Always Sometimes Monsters. It's kind of all over that
it,
game.
it touches because I think it's really hard. I mean, or maybe it's just where my brain went, but analyzing theology through the lens of a game creation, like is God a game designer?
Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting conversation. Yeah. Mm, I don't want to start that. Yeah, but that's an interesting one.
That's kind of part of where my head goes. Um, and then games are about choice, and free will is a
Yeah,
huge piece of
that's a
theology.
weird one. Yeah.
Um,
I still don't know what the deal with that one is.
yeah, you know, it's a big loop, and you can't I can't get out of it.
Yeah.
Uh, um, but I have also noticed um with myself, even when entering a very welcoming place like Odd Church that is surrounding theology, the modern games scene, modern games culture, there is at best an offstandishness when it comes towards religion, in the games discords, and I'm curious what you think it is about, like, capital God, that makes people in this space feel uneasy or even antagonistic towards, like, it's not something, like, a lot of people don't wear their faith on their sleeves so hard because of these things, and it seems relatively harmless to me, but other people don't, and I don't know why.
I mean, yeah, I guess it's a combination of, well, there's certainly some reality to the fact that today the most visible large group of Christians, I think, are pretty poorly behaved and aren't, maybe in their individual lives, in their everyday decisions, they care for people and they're good to people in their small decisions, but in their collective actions and the sort of political movements that they tend to get behind in America anyway, it's pretty lacking and pretty bad, pretty pretty bad stuff, so people are kind of sick of that, maybe, and people are a little, and maybe even a lot of people have probably been adversely affected by some of the policies that they push for. By they, I mean the evangelical, like, mainstream political movement. Um, and, you know, can't blame anyone really for being sick of that. But, and, you know, Christianity in particular, isn't necessarily a new thing, being collectively very badly behaved. Um, but it's badly behaved, I guess, is a mild way of putting it. But you know, so when you're a person who maybe you grew up religious and then you left and you're just real sick of it from that, or you know, you grew up just always being a bit cynical about it, like, I think it's more just a reaction of the proponents of the religion. I don't know, what's that Gandhi quote? I like your Christ, but not your Christians so much, or something like that. Yeah, and so you know, I can't. I like, that's the default, like, that I expect from people. Um, and I suppose what I would like to, not that I'm like some great, you know, shining example, because I have like other political, ideological, you know, beliefs or whatever, but like not just because of that, you know, like, but I would like to possibly present the idea that these things are maybe separate, you know, like the religion or the set of fundamental beliefs about humans and like our spirits and like God are not, you know, exist, I guess, independently of the actions of God's followers or whatever. Um, you know, and you assess those on their own merits, or or on your own, you know, maybe read the scripture or or whatever for yourself, or read about it from people who don't suck. And you know, I know the no true Scotsman thing, but like, just to say that, you know, um, I think for me, this is where meaning comes from, you know, like, and I think that's a very valuable thing, and it's a good source of stability, and um, yeah, and I think it really pushes folks towards kindness and, you know, all of that. So like, if the thing itself, you know, if you really look at the thing itself, like, but of course, again, you know, it's a big messy thing. You got the Old Testament with all the violence there, and so it's such a messy world, that that being the initial reaction, you know, so it's justified. And then there's also, you know, additional cynicism that I guess I would say is undeserved. That's just things that people repeat frequently, that you just absorb from being in these cynical spaces online, and then you repeat them, because that's the prevailing, I guess, feeling towards this. So yeah, it's a complicated thing, and like, it makes it very complicated because, you know, the Great Commission, Jesus said, go into the world and make disciples of everyone. So that's, you know, I don't call myself an evangelical, but I do believe I, I, I guess you could say I'm a red letter Christian, something like that, where the words of Jesus are often printed in red. And I think those are the important thing. I think those were actually God manifest. And the Bible, I don't think, is all equal or anything. I believe the words and actions of Jesus are what Christians are to center everything around. So, yeah, it's such a, but, you know, I would be called not a Christian for that belief alone. So
Right.
so it's such a strange, weird thing, and I guess generally I can't blame anyone for like being super jaded about it, cynical. I don't give everyone credit that they've had actual bad experiences. I think mostly it's just a pretty uncool thing to be when you're a gamer. And it's also some vulnerability because it gets into
Mhm.
like, your weaknesses and but people sure do talk about politics, like argue about politics. So I don't know what it is about that. Like maybe it's just, you know, maybe it's because religion is more a fundamental part of people and not liable to change than maybe politics are, even though those can be. And so I guess it's it's not really, discussion isn't really encouraged, and maybe the way our generations taught us, like our parents taught us, like as far as I, mostly in my family, we avoided the topic with extended family,
Mhm.
uh, just to keep peace. Politics every now and then, but
Right.
that wouldn't go well either. But religion, you really didn't talk about, because I think religion requires some everyone to have some fundamental buy-in of how the universe works, so you can actually have a logical conversation. Because if you think, you know like let's say a young earth creationist believes God just made everything a couple thousand years ago, and I don't, like, there's so many topics that we would just not be able to talk about because we have a fundamentally different understanding of
Right.
how anything is structured in this world. So
Yeah, when you have that kind of clash, it's like your basis of the universal fundamentals are like so disaligned. It's like I'm challenging your entire concept of reality
yeah, and in an internet chat, that's not
with
gonna,
no nuance.
yeah, that's not gonna, where normally you're talking about Duke Nukem or whatever, boomer thing, that's not gonna like work. Like someone has to have personal experiences out there, I think, with others, or their own personal experience praying or with God or reading on their own and really meditating and really thinking and processing. All of this change happens, I think, when you're alone with your thoughts, or when someone shows you extraordinary kindness, or an event happens in your life that you can't explain, not through, maybe infrequently through internet chats people change their beliefs, but I think it's probably the one of the less likely, just because how it's structured, less likely ways for that to manifest. So yeah.
I mean, given that, then why do you think Odd Church has become such a good place? uh,
Well, I guess it's, yeah, well, I guess it's already mostly people who are already Christians, and then also people who are already Christians who are also very active in online communities that are creative. Um, and not necessarily game. There are some people who don't make stuff who are just game fans, maybe mostly because they know my work, maybe, but like, um, yeah. And so it's when you have, I think it's less when you have all of these interests aligning. Like, I think there's got to be some, you know, you and there's not really, when that's the most of who's in there, there's not really this broader culture to answer to there, where like people are posting a certain
right.
meme and have all this vocabulary and stuff. Um, so yeah, I guess just conceptually, just it invites more relaxed people, because I think Christians who are also super into online creative communities and stuff are already used to being very cordial, like, and being like, because because like I know, for example, I got to be somewhat careful with the things that I say around churchy people, and I also know, like, not on this religious server, there are certain things that I just wouldn't start a discussion on,
Right.
because I know people just would like start getting real mad at each other very quickly. Um, so I guess people. So this is people like me, I guess, who are people who are still practicing in some way Christianity, or uh, uh, who are used to that kind of, like, navigating that kind of thing. And so when you get all those people together, it ends up everyone already kind of gets it.
It's I mean, all that said, it's a place I really appreciate. You
Oh,
know,
thanks.
I think you've made something really really cool there, and I appreciate its existence, and I appreciate the conversations I get to observe as.
Yeah, it's pretty wild sometimes. Like, and there's such a. I'm very impressed. Like, cause I was worried about
Mhm.
moderation. Cause talking about those things is normally very difficult to pull off. But there are so many different points of view on there, and people have not destroyed each other over them, and it's pretty cool. Nothing, and the rules say, like, I wrote in the rules, if there's someone and you fundamentally disagree with them, or their views are maybe even bordering on harmful, like, I'm imagining if 17-year-old me got on in that chat room, I was very, 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 very conservative. Like, because I just thought, you know, I don't know, I hate throwing this out there, but we weren't super wealthy growing up, and I thought the liberals, the leftists, whoever, were very fancy, rich college kids, and their fancy rich parents who like to talk down on us stupid yokels, stupid Christian idiots, like we were dumb, and pretend that we were the ones who were oppressing them when we had nothing. And so I was, I guess, like, I had this anger a little, and I had this, it bothered me a little, like, that feeling, like, and I still am angry about that, but from the other side, like wealthy, college educated people talking down to the yokels bugs me as a pretty left leaning guy now a lot. But so I can imagine going into this kind of chat room and being like, saying some pretty offensive stuff. You know, we haven't had anyone really pull that out, but I could imagine that happening. And if you're a teenager and you're like, you don't see much of a great future for yourself, this is going to be where you're at, like, if you've grown up in it.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to, like, make somewhere, like, if that were to happen, that maybe I tell the person, I DM them if they got a little whatever, but I want them to be allowed to be there and watch watch other people, you know, and maybe have people show kindness to them or something, who they would normally think are the enemy, the communists or whoever, you know, they would think are the enemy, be show them some kindness. And I would add, a disclaimer or whatever here, that I'm not talking about a powerful person who is influencing others with hate or something like that, who
Mhm.
has a big platform. I'm talking about some poor kid who gets on there and is like, because of how they grew up, has some, like, ideologies that, if politically enacted, would be very bad for people, like anti-gay marriage, all the list of things that
Mhm.
normally maybe Christians would be, in mainstream culture. And I would hope that, and maybe there are people in there observing, but, like, I would like to show them too. It's almost an outreach for Christians, but for that like there's people who have civil discussion and I don't think you're a monster. You're just some person who is rightfully frustrated that you know at your circumstances, and maybe they're pinning it on the wrong groups, but like their frustration. But like, yeah, that's a difficult thing. Yeah, like that hasn't happened yet, and if it does happen, where someone's in there and they're like, I don't know, if I find out that they're a young person, really young person, it's gonna be difficult. Like especially if they're aggressive. I don't know what I'd do. Like because I wouldn't want to ban them, but I don't know. You can't let someone go in there say whatever they want and say really hurtful things to people. But that's kind of what I would hope that the place would help with too. Is like people like that who are on some kind of in their formative early like teenage years, and I don't know. That's sticky.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's on both sides of the spectrum, right? Like it's not just when you feel disadvantaged, you find an enemy.
Yeah, right.
And my hope, in this circumstance where you eventually and any online community will have this scenario play out, but I think and I hope that the community of Odd Church is strong enough and tempered enough that you as the don't have to deal with it personally. It's like one of those things where the community itself is of the manner that it does its job.
Right. Yeah, I would hope that too. Yeah, and we have had like it's certainly a left-leaning place just by its nature. Like that's, but that's because when you get, it's not often that you can vent with other Christians about, for example, Donald Trump or whatever,
right?
Because normally you can't do that. But so it's nice. There's a venting channel now where to do that a little bit, but or Christian culture. Like if I went to my church back home, maybe they would admit, oh yeah, those Christian movies are so bad, but their heart's in the right place, and we can't speak against people trying to. I don't think their heart's in the right place with most of those Christian movies either. But it's nice to have somewhere where we can actually talk about this with some other Christians. Yeah.
Again, I appreciate and love the space. I think it's wonderful. Nice. But we are running almost double length of
double. Yeah.
I only thing, because I do have a curiosity. Is there anything that you're surprised you miss about Florida?
Oh, not surprised, but I'll run through the things. I gotta pee, so we gotta wrap this up for sure. Donuts, real donuts. I'm surprised that Germany doesn't have real donuts. They love all their baked stuff. But when I say real donuts, I mean like the crispy, warm, yeasty, maybe Krispy Kreme, you could say. I miss those so much. Oh, I miss those a lot. Real milkshakes. They don't use malt in their milkshakes. American, basically anything unhealthy for me from America is what I miss. The bad breakfast at a greasy diner, not really a thing. Like all that, like with maple syrup everywhere, that kind of stuff. Not really a thing. There's like fake American restaurants, and Mexican food. So basically food is what I miss.
Food is a primary.
And the people, family and everything.
Right, individual. Yeah, I can understand that.
But those are the things I miss for sure. Yeah.
That's good.
Not the weather. Screw the weather. Also, I hate the beach. I don't know. I'm a nerd. I think that comes with it. I don't know, maybe not, but I hate the beach. I'm just glad to not go to a beach much anymore. Maybe because in Florida, the beach is always so close. It's always like the vacation place you go.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, great, sand and some salty water again. How fun. So I'm glad that's not the default vacation. But And in Florida, you get burnt to a crisp, or I do, going outside, and mosquitoes. So no, just food and people. That's it.
But are you enjoying the dev culture in Germany?
I
there any
was
big?
before coronavirus. In Berlin, there's a good one, and they have
Yeah.
a festival called Amaze,
I
which
love
is
Amaze.
you went there.
Yeah.
Duh, I saw you there. We were hanging out a little bit.
Yeah.
Amaze is awesome. Yeah.
Amaze is good.
All right, I gotta go.
Yeah, we got to wrap this up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jay, thank you so much for joining us. What a wonderful chat. And
Yeah, that was real nice.
guys, follow Jay on Twitter and check out Dropsy and Hypnospace. And I'll see y'all later. Bye.